Oiê, tudo bom? Eu sou a Mika com 3 N's no final, e hoje eu vim apresentar uma das collabs mais legais que eu fiz na história desse canal. Eu consegui gravar com XIRAN Jay ZHAO, que é a pessoa que escreveu Viúva de Ferro, que é um livro que eu já comentei aqui no canal, inclusive, tem o link aqui na descrição, e também é a cara de um dos canais que eu mais acompanho aqui no YouTube. O canal de XIRAN, vocês talvez já tenham visto aqueles vídeos comparando, por exemplo, MULAN live action com a cultura chinesa, ou o vídeo falando das inspirações de Avatar, a Lenda de Aang, em algumas culturas asiáticas e quais são as semelhanças e diferenças. Tem muito conteúdo legal no canal dela, vou deixar linkado aqui na descrição também. E nessa conversa a gente fala de vários assuntos, desde diferenças culturais entre o Brasil e a China, até as tendências da literatura de abraçar outras culturas que não sejam necessariamente as que falam inglês. Então, sério, tem muita coisa legal que a gente conversou, espero que vocês curtam. Esse vídeo demorou bastante pra sair, porque XIRAN veio pro Brasil pra Bienal do Livro, e já faz bastante tempo disso, mas eu tive alguns problemas aqui no canal na hora de soltar esse vídeo, e eu queria que ele saísse todo, porque a conversa foi longa e foi muito legal, então tudo foi legendado, e eu espero muito que vocês curtam. Queria pedir pra vocês irem comentando conforme vocês assistem, porque esse tipo de vídeo é difícil de chegar em mais gente, e eu acho que merece, sabe? Eu acho que muito mais gente poderia ver essa conversa, porque ficou super legal. Então eu agradeço super se vocês puderem deixar o like e já irem comentando. E o último recado antes da gente entrar na entrevista, prometo, queria agradecer a Editora Intrínseca, que foi quem me convidou pra fazer esse bate-papo com XIRAN. Esse não é um vídeo patrocinado, mas fica aqui o agradecimento de qualquer forma, porque foi um convite muito legal, eu me senti muito honrada. E se vocês quiserem conhecer mais sobre Viúva de Ferro, que é o livro de XIRAN, tem o meu vídeo linkado aqui na descrição e também um link pra compra do livro, se vocês se interessarem, beleza? Bora pra essa conversa! So we're here.
Hola, I'm in Brazil. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. I was talking to them a bit before we were recording, and I said that I really enjoy XIRAN's videos and I really enjoy the book. You can even check my video on it. It's in the description. I wanted to talk to you about creating content and creating literature, TV, movies in a perspective that's not centered in our US, Europe bubble.
Yeah.
Like, escaping it a bit. So it's pretty much talking. You can talk however you want. You're free.
Yeah.
Here, you know?
No, because like that's American cultural imperialism, right? I mean, so much of the content that I suppose that like so much of the content that you consume here is imported from America.
It is.
But like, and it kind of like dominates. Does it like dominate the local entertainment scene? Like, it's very hard to break into like the Brazilian entertainment industries?
It actually is pretty hard, even from for Brazilian writers to get into the mainstream fandom guys and book stand clubs and everything, because people are used to getting into fandoms from English-speaking authors, but when they see some names written in Portuguese, they think it's weird.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Not always. There are many Brazilian authors who have great fandoms and big fandoms, but it's pretty much easier to get good numbers and a big fandom if you're an English-speaking writer. We're even doing this interview in English, so...
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's because my Portuguese is terrible.
No, but you see, we're not doing it in Chinese, for example. I speak English, I don't speak Chinese. That's a reason why I speak English, right?
Yeah, and I'm mad about it. I'm so mad that like English is the language that became like the lingua franca. At least it's not French.
Yeah, you're studying French right now, right?
Yes, like against my will.
I've also seen that you tweeted a lot in Portuguese, and you went to Brazilian customs in Portuguese, and I think that's a pretty well done thing.
Well, that was easy because I could tell the guy was just asking, "Oh, why are you in Brazil?" So I was just like, "Eu sou autor." So I'm an author attending a book festival, so that's what I said to him. And I find it a compliment when people look at me and they just start speaking to me in Portuguese because they assume I'm fluent. I'm like, oh, you assume I'm fluent just because I said hola to you. Nice.
Yeah, and that's because in Brazil we have many immigrants and people just assume everyone's Brazilian, so they just speak Portuguese to me.
Yeah, it's a compliment, but the phrase "eu não falar português" has really put in the work for me.
Yeah. Here we have pretty much been being educated in Hollywood language. So we have seen many American-made movies, some Europe-made movies. We have many great Portuguese writing authors. When we get into our teens and we want to read young adult, and we want to read fantasy, sci-fi, we get into it pretty much with English-speaking authors. You are writing in English, but you are bringing so much of Chinese words and Chinese concepts to the literature, which is something that I think that in our mainstream reading communities would some years ago be considered off. And now people are pronouncing the names of the characters correctly, like you said.
Yeah, like I was saying that like Portuguese speakers are some of the only people like who don't speak Chinese but can pronounce like Chinese names pretty well. Like my name's XIRAN. If you pronounce it the way you think it is in Portuguese, it's right. It's completely correct.
And I think that's a reflex of something that's been happening in pop culture in the latest years, that there's a space that's growing for authors that bring other things that are not so mainstream in the US Europe bubble. And I wanted to ask your views about that. Am I right?
Yes, it is. Definitely a few years ago, I think even 2 years ago, it was like really difficult to break into the industry. When you're writing from a non-Western perspective, just like non-American, Western European, I guess. And yeah, like Iron Widow even had a really difficult time getting published because it like barely scraped by a publishing deal, and it was like rejected by every publisher in the States. So Iron Widow is actually like published by a Canadian publisher. They were willing to take that chance because I guess the US publishers were like, oh, YA sci-fi with so much Chinese stuff and it's queer, I don't think this can sell. But like this is the problem with publishing. It's like it doesn't have faith in something unless it has like comparative titles that have already done well. So for Iron Widow, when I was on submission with it, there weren't many similar books on the market that have like done super well. So that didn't give US publishers faith that this could sell well. And even my Canadian deal, the deal size, you can kind of guess like how many copies your publisher expects the book to sell by your deal size. And then my deal size, I think they only expected to sell a couple thousand copies at most.
Oh no.
Yeah, and now it's like been a New York Times bestseller for like 35 weeks. It blows my mind. I mean, like I never expected that this would have such reach. But the thing is, once something like this actually like shows publishers that it can sell, it opens up the doors to more books by similar authors. A few years ago, there were no books. There weren't a lot of like diverse books on the market, and therefore publishers thought that diverse books couldn't sell. And when they acquire a diverse book, they don't really put in the marketing budget to push it. I don't understand why, because why would you buy a book for so much money and then just like let it die? It's weird. Publishers are weird. But now I don't think it's more people who are writing diverse stories. It's that more diverse stories are like given permission to go through.
Yeah, they're getting to mainstream, right?
Yeah.
They're getting easier.
Yeah.
Not really easier, but some more easier.
It is.
Access to the mainstream, right? Through those gatekeepers.
Yeah, and I do find it ridiculous that like we have to prove ourselves to the publishers before they're willing to buy us, because like how are you supposed to prove yourself if you won't buy my book? And Iron Widow only blew up because, you know, I talked about MULAN on YouTube. Like that's the reason that so many people were aware of the book, because otherwise this book wouldn't have gotten that much attention with just traditional publishing like marketing strategies. And it makes me wonder like how many other books like Iron Widow were like just buried because the publisher just like didn't market it. Yeah,
probably many others, because communities that are not on the mainstream of pop culture have been writing stuff since forever.
Exactly.
And not everyone has gotten to be published even, and never gotten out of fan fiction fandom. And many people that have being published or self-published don't even get to be translated to other languages and to international markets and everything. So I think that's a big thing that's going on right now. The people are realizing that they can read something that's not exactly the mainstream English written fiction that they're used to. They can get to know other authors and other languages and other cultures. I think that's pretty great.
It is, and I think that, you know, it's pretty ridiculous for publishers to assume that a book can't sell just because it's like it's inspired by a different culture. Because like, look at how popular anime is.
Yeah.
And like, anime is mostly, I think it's very, very community driven. So, cause like not a lot of anime like make efforts to like make official releases in Brazil, for example. But like anime is super popular, and that's all written, like those weren't even written with an international audience in mind, but people are still able to relate to those stories. So It just shows you like it doesn't really matter like which culture background you come from. If story is good, then people will like it. But it's all about like how accessible those stories are.
In Brazil, we are getting some official anime releasings right now. Some years ago, we depended pretty much on what was shown on TV, and that was not much. And there was a very great fandom that depended only on piracy. That has changed a bit. Now we have official translations and it's working. It's a big market. Oh, of course, it's a big market.
Yeah,
have you just now realized that?
Yeah. No, it's the capitalist gatekeepers who are like, no, this is too weird. People won't like it. But meanwhile, like people are putting in so much effort into like subbing these anime episodes for free.
Yeah, and they want to give money to get some things officially, but they simply can't sometimes. And
exactly, just make things more accessible.
Yeah, please. But I wanted to ask you something because when we were talking before shooting, I proposed that this video was about outside of the US, Europe, Japan bubble.
Yeah.
And you said, why Japan? And I wanted to ask you, why not Japan? Is Japan not mainstream? Because in Brazil it is a lot.
It is, yeah, but like I still feel like it's not on the same level as just like American cultural imperialism, for example, because like Japanese people don't think they're the only people in the world. But like Americans, for example, when Americans send, like when they give their address for like contests and stuff, they never put in their country. They're just like, okay, this is my city, this is my state.
It's Texas, it's California, and
I know,
you have to know that this is a state belonging to the United States of America.
Yeah, they just assume, and then no, Americans, well, I guess some Americans, they just they think like they're the only country that exists. Even on the internet, a lot of times they're like, oh, why aren't you caring about this issue? And I'm like, I'm not American. But at the same time, you do kind of have to care because America, like everything that happens in America affects everywhere else.
Yeah,
and it's really annoying.
That's a great point you brought because you live in Canada right now. I think a big part of your fandom is English speaking, is from America.
Yeah.
And we also have many content creators that are Americans, and one refers the other and then refers the other. And so when you click on one of them, their videos, you just go to the next and the next and the next, and you get into this creating this American creator bubble. I was wondering, have you gotten into this bubble? Do you think you belong with these creators?
Not really. I don't really have a YouTube like friend group or anything. I don't really talk to other YouTubers. It's because, I wasn't really like a YouTube person before I started my channel. Like I would just watch random videos. But I do have a few favorite YouTubers. Caitlin Doty is a favorite of mine. But like, I think it just happens when English is like the lingua franca. So if you do content in English, then like, it's the only language that if you do content in it, then like most people would be able to understand. Well, not most people, but like people who are just on YouTube, I guess, unless it's the only type of content that's like capable of going really, really worldwide and international.
I was wondering about that because I was thinking, XIRAN speaks English, and I think their crowd is pretty much English speaking because of the videos. Some of them have subtitles, so I think there are some people that don't speak English but still watch your videos. Do they think they are part of this pop culture English speaking community on YouTube?
I don't see myself as part of a YouTube clique. I think I get compared a lot with like people like Lindsay Ellis. and Jenny Nicholson. But no, I've never spoken to them.
Really?
So yeah, I'm pretty much just doing my own thing. And I do consider myself a history tuber, but I've also never spoken to any history tubers. I don't really consider myself part of the YouTube community, I guess. I suppose I should like reach out to them or something, but it feels weird because it's hard to talk to other creators on YouTube. Surprisingly, I do have a pretty big audience in like Southeast Asia and stuff because there's a very large Chinese diaspora. And they can actually like speak English pretty well or like understand it pretty well. So they watch my videos. And of course, there are like so many Brazilians. Like I mentioned Brazil and then suddenly all the comments are like, Brazil mentioned!
Yeah, you can't even say anything remotely related to Brazil and without the Brazilians just being very excited about it.
Well, I mentioned like Brazil once in like an Avatar video and suddenly all my comments were like, oh my God, Brazil mentioned. Come to Brazil while I'm here. I've come to Brazil.
Speaking of Brazil, we have a creator community here. I see that many of our videos, speaking from a pop culture perspective, not a history perspective, usually on pop culture videos, we cover mostly English language, literature, TV shows, movies.
Really? So I did wonder, do you prefer to watch it dubbed or subbed?
I usually watch stuff subbed, but I know that there's a big market for dubs in Brazil.
Yeah.
There are some people that claim for everything must be only subbed and no dubs.
Yeah.
But mainly on the anime community, but TV shows too. But there are many people that prefer watching it dubbed. Now that we have many official releases of anime in Brazil, the most popular titles are getting dubbed. It's really successful. So I think people mostly would rather watch it dubbed.
I heard that the Dragon Ball dub is really good.
It is. It is.
Why is it considered like super good?
Because people are pretty much used to it, and we Brazilians are really proud of our dubbing industry. I really am not a specialist, so I don't know if that's correct, but people are used to say that Brazilian dubbing is among the best in the world. So people are very proud of our voice actors and everything.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, pretty much voices that are very characteristic and people recognize the voice actors and are very proud.
By the way, I am a huge Knights of the Zodiac fan and I'm here to like hopefully find some merch because I heard it was really big here.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But like in America, it's just like not known at all.
Yeah, and I've heard about that. People say that in Latin America and in Brazil, it's bigger than in Japan, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's wild because I saw this one video of like the singer of the theme song and she was at like an event in Chile or something and everyone was singing along in Japanese. It was wild.
Yeah, in Latin America, it's really big. The anime industry is pretty big in Latin America. I've seen a video a while ago that said that it was because of the telenovelas. Yeah, I'm going to link it in the description, but they said that Latin Americans were used to watching content that went in arcs, in many episodic arcs, because we were used to watching telenovelas.
Yeah.
And in that time, North Americans were still watching a lot of sitcoms. Of course, there were series that went on arcs, but they were not that much popular. They were saying in the video that because we are so used to watching telenovelas, we didn't question the format that was episode after episode, but I don't know if that makes sense.
So do you mean like our telenovelas usually they have a set number of episodes and then you have like a beginning, a middle, and an end?
They go on for months.
Months, but like US TV shows go on for years and they just like never give you a conclusive ending.
That's why I was wondering if it makes sense, because the telenovelas, they usually have one episode and it ends on a cliffhanger and then the other episode. And a while ago was something that Brazilians just kept watching every day. When it was getting to the end of an arc, people didn't go to the streets, they just stayed home watching it.
So there is an actual storyline is what you mean.
Yeah, it's a big storyline.
Yeah, I do think that's a big appeal of anime, especially for like people who grew up used to US TV shows, which go on forever, and then you're supposed to just have season after season. But anime, it's like, okay, you have 52 episodes, and that's the entire story. So you can like easily consume the whole thing, and you like get closure from that, which you don't get very often from like American
TV shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some gripes with the American TV show format. I do think there should be more limited series.
I like limited series because there's no time for watching everything.
I know. I want closure.
Besides the anime successes in Latin America, what are examples would you think that are from people breaking this bubble and creating content and literature outside of the bubble? K-pop, maybe it's an example, but it's too big and it's
Lucas
music.
Neto?
Yeah, Lucas Neto. But not in the English-speaking community right now, not yet.
Which is a shame.
Yeah,
well,
but
I don't know. I heard that adults don't like him, but whatever. I've also heard that he's a national hero for influencing the Portugal kids.
Yeah, they say that he's teaching Portuguese kids how to speak Brazilian Portuguese.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Lucas Neto?
I have, but it's not my type of content. But yeah, it's a huge success, and it's kind of course that's not the main intention, but it's kind of anti-imperialist because
I know, right?
We are teaching our colonizers how to speak our Portuguese.
I know, and then it's not even his intention, but he's just doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Hero of Brazil, Lucas Neto.
Yeah.
Lucas Neto, my DMs are open.
But that's a really interesting thing because we speak so much about soft power and how culture and pop culture is a kind of power, and even in imperialism is such a big part of the cultural domination and everything else. And I think that when people start consuming content that's outside of the main bubble, like all English names, all English terms, all English references, books that say a name of an American city and you are expected to know everything about it.
Yeah.
When we start consuming content that's not obviously American or obviously British, we kind of get away a little bit from that.
Yeah, for sure. It introduces you to new concepts, and this is why I'm fascinated that Dame has become super popular in Brazil. Just like I see Brazilian Dame fans all the time, and it's wild to me as a Chinese person because growing up, I never thought that Chinese culture was ever going to be cool.
Really?
I didn't think it was going to be cool. I didn't think it was cool ever. So it surprises me now to see people watching C-dramas and really enjoying it. Because for me, I'm like, how did you sit through 80 episodes of this?
But people do.
People do.
People do, and they like it.
Yeah, which surprises me because in my mind, C-dramas, they require, especially historical C-dramas, they require so much context. I know that a really popular C-drama is The Untamed, but tell me that you didn't watch the first episodes of The Untamed. I was I'm so confused, but these people are pretty.
Yeah, what's going on? I like it.
So it amazes me that people are capable of non-Chinese people are capable of watching the whole thing through, even though to me I wonder how are you not confused by this?
And did you keep that in mind when you were writing your book? How much should I put in? How much should I leave out?
I wrote what I wanted, and then if my editor told me something didn't make sense to them, I would explain it a little more. But mostly I didn't really care. And actually, this was my first book that I wrote with a Chinese protagonist, and that's explicitly based on Chinese culture. Because I've written 3 books beforehand, and I don't know why, but my attitude around before 2017 or something, it was oh, I'll never write a Chinese book because it's gonna be too self-indulgent, no one's ever gonna get it. So I guess in my mind, when I was younger, I always thought that Chinese culture was gonna be too different for people to get, it's gonna confuse people. But now I just I put out a book like this, I don't really care. Well, I do care if it makes sense, but people are more capable of understanding than I would assume.
Yeah, if you were a traditional American waspy author, you probably wouldn't even question anything about that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really a luxury that the wasps, the Americans have. They can just talk about stuff that's going on in the country and expect everyone to care.
What do you think are going to be the next steps on that? Do you think we're going through a phase when people are generally interested and invested in getting other types of content and other types of names and creators in their bookshelves? Or do you think that if we don't keep kindling this flame, it's going to pass?
Well, for sure, we need to keep kindling this flame. I don't think it's going to pass, but it does require an active effort for us to like seek out new POC and like queer authored things. Just because, you know, like history doesn't always go in the direction that we want. That's the number one lesson that I learned from Chinese history. Because, you know, the golden age of like tolerance to society in China was like 1,000 years ago in the Tang Dynasty. And then all of that like tolerance went downhill. So for me, I've always been aware that, you know, if you don't actively fight for your rights, then people are going to come and take it because, you know, history really does not flow in the direction that we want. And nowadays, you know, I think we see a lot of that. I do feel like people are forgetting a lot of the harm that came from like the 2 world wars and the ideologies that led to that, like fascism and like nationalism and that kind of stuff. And now all these right-wingers are popping up in reaction to like just society becoming more open, and people are mad about that and they want to become more isolationist, which is unfortunate. But like we do have to like push back against that. We can't get complacent.
Yeah, right. And it's exactly the opposite from the things we're pushing, right? We're pushing to be more open and more cosmopolitan in our culture, and some people are bothered by that.
Yeah,
right?
They want to ban books. They want to like stop publishers from like putting out like books with like certain viewpoints. It's just ridiculous.
Reading your book, I think that the main character, she's pretty much angry about many things.
Many things.
It's one of the strengths in the book, I think, this anger and the way it's shown in the narrative. And I wanted to ask you how the real Zetian was brought into this and the main differences that you would say there are.
Well, the main difference is definitely her age. I mean, the real Zetian couldn't have done everything in her teens because she didn't have access to a giant mecha. But Zetian has access to a giant mecha, so she's able to enact a lot more like drastic change within a short time, which will have consequences in the sequel. Like, don't worry about it. She's not gonna get away with just like making huge changes. And this is a thing. Like recently I've been studying the French Revolution, and if you want to make change, there's going to be a lot of pushback, and you also have to like push against that pushback. And it's going to be difficult. I do hope that the Zetian I wrote like inherited a lot of her like agency, because the real historical figure I have a 2-parter video on my channel that talks about like the real stuff she did. And at every step, she's just like so smart, and she uses like every tool that's available to her to just keep rising. And she like never gives up. And then she like is always challenging her society, and she's always like trying to do new stuff. She was really an innovator. And then I think the most respectable thing about her is that she was a legitimately good administrator. Like she wasn't a despot or a tyrant. The people were happy under her, and that's why she was able to become emperor. Because otherwise, like if the people aren't happy with your rule, then you're going to be in trouble. But for her, it was the officials in her government who were scared of her, not her citizens. And I do think like politicians should be scared.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting thing, because one of the fictions that are coming the most in my channel are from American authors, and the main one is Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of discussion about the pushback from the commoners to the monarchs, and everything that they have to do to be respected, or else some things happen. When you say that Zetian was loved by the people and feared by the counselors, that's a pretty big thing.
I know, right?
I want to see how that goes.
Yeah, sequel time. Because most adaptations of Zetian, they end right when she becomes emperor. But she ruled for like 15 years after that, and a lot of stuff happened. And so yeah, book 2 is like, well, book 2 has some of that. But definitely it's her trying to navigate her new place in the world, and like just dealing with reactionaries, because like revolutions don't end when you like overthrow the government.
Yeah, the hardest part begins exactly when you are in the seat of power, right?
Yeah, everything you did was justified to overthrow the oppressor, but now you are the one in the position of power. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, what are you going to do? And you are the one that going to that has to answer the people, and oh, that's why we're having cuts. That's why there isn't any food and everything else, right?
Yeah, that's why she's just like, I don't know what taxes are. What is this? And that's why she will have math lesbians to help her.
Really?
Yeah, there will be math lesbians. Because, like, yes. Because she doesn't know what taxes are. So she's like,
Math lesbians, of course. That's the answer.
Yeah,
that's
get the lesbians to do your taxes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've been wanting to ask you something about what you said earlier, because you were saying, oh, my book, maybe it wouldn't get so big on the top of the selling lists if I hadn't made a video about MULAN. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that? Is it ambivalent? Do you get mixed feelings or anything?
Not really. I'm mostly just very surprised by the reaction to that video. I mean, I made it completely spontaneously. Literally, like, you can check the creation date of my channel. Like, created the day that I uploaded that video. I just made the channel, threw the video up, and forgot about it. And then suddenly it just blew up, and now it has like over 3 million views. And even now, I am still kind of baffled to why that many people like that video. It is literally just me complaining about a movie for 40 minutes.
But that's what goes on YouTube. And you complained with knowing what you complain about. Many people wanted to see a perspective that was based on, okay, so what's right, what's wrong, what do I think about it? And I think your video resonated because of that. I don't know.
I guess, it just blows my mind. And even now, I upload like 40-minute videos about like really obscure Chinese historical stories, and people watch that.
People are interested.
I know. And then I think this just goes to show, like, people are interested in the wider world, and it's just all about just like making that content accessible. And, you know, this is a lesson for all the people in the entertainment industry. Just like, give people a chance, give creators a chance.
In your videos, you usually describe your video like Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale. I know that that's pretty common in the book industry.
Yeah, they force you to use comp titles.
Yeah. What would you think were the main references? Feel free to add any that you think.
Yeah, so the actual inspiration for Iron Widow is an anime called Darling in the Franxx.
Oh my.
Do not Google this anime in polite company. And I really liked the first 13 episodes of Darling in the Franxx, but then I didn't really like the direction that it went. And this is a pretty common sentiment. People are like, oh yeah, that anime didn't have a good ending. So I was ranting about what I wish the anime had done differently to a friend, and then slowly this, like, all my speculations, all my like wants just spiraled so differently from Darling in the Franxx that I was like, hey, like, I could write this as an original story. So I still don't think that like Darling in the Franxx is all trash. And then I also recognize that it does some stuff differently than like what I wanted it to do, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I was mainly inspired by like its boy-girl dual pilot like system, mega piloting system. And in that one, they don't really have like an imbalanced dichotomy to it. So like the boys and girls, they don't know what like sexism is pretty much. And I think that, you know, that was right for its like story world and concepts, but I want to like use that as a metaphor to explore like real world misogyny and heteronormativity. And so that's what I did differently with Iron Widow. And so it's directly inspired by Darling in the Franxx. And
that's really cool, because when I was reading the book for the first time, I was thinking about Darling in the Franxx.
Yeah. And then you saw in my acknowledgements, I was like, yeah, Darling in the Franxx inspired this book.
I think that it's really goes to show that right now, I think that not only you, but many authors are bringing pop culture references to anime. And I think that's really cool. Even Pacific Rim, which was cited.
Yeah, Pacific Rim was inspired by like movies like Godzilla and all the like mecha robot movies. So I only use Pacific Rim as a comp title because it's something familiar to Western audiences. Yeah. But this isn't like more inspired by like mecha anime such as like Gundam or like Darling in the Franxx. And also stuff like Ultraman and also Saint Seiya, like the armor in here, it's directly inspired by Saint Seiya.
It looks like it. It looks pretty much like it.
Like
and
nice
that's amazing.
So yeah, this is a very, very anime-inspired book. And I only mentioned Pacific Rim because it's an anime-inspired movie. And this is another thing. I think that like American media is so popular because only they have the money to like make ridiculously big budget movies like Pacific Rim. Like you can't have that production in a smaller country. You just can't.
Yeah, it's really difficult to get the story and make it in a way that people are going to see that and think, oh, okay, that's my new favorite franchise. And even if they find a thing that's off this bubble and think it's cool, they just remake it.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
Like Train to Busan.
Train to Delaware. Okay, what if Train to Busan took place in Brazil?
Wow, Train to Busan. That would be like Train to Ilhabela. In Busan, there's a ferry, right? So in Ilhabela, you have a ferry getting from, it's an island, it's Ilha, and there's a ferry from mainland to there.
Like if there was a zombie outbreak in Brazil, where would you go?
I don't know, actually. I think about that sometimes, you know?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was passing through an avenue in Brazil, there's a big military headquarters there from Brazilian police. They're armed in front of it. And I think, oh, if there's a zombie outbreak, I'm going to break into there.
But everyone else is going to have the same thoughts. So all the zombies will be there.
Yeah, and it's downtown. So it's a lot of people, and I think that's not a great place to be.
I would just leave the city. I would try to go to the suburbs or something.
Yeah, right. I think that's the cleverest move. I think I'd die instantly.
Oh yeah,
I think I'd be patient zero.
Oh my God,
I'm already there. Zombie outbreak aside, would you like to tell something to the Brazilian audience that's watching us? It's a long video.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something about that, the book, or both, or your channel? Everything you want to say, now is the time.
Okay. Hello, Brazil. I love you. Mil gato bebe leite.
What? Really? That's it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Actually, mil gosta. No, it's eu gosto mil gatos.
I like cats too. I have to.
Oh,
They're
so cute.
Thank you so much, so much, so much.
Yeah, and thank you guys for being so enthusiastic and passionate. It blows my mind.
And please check out XIRAN's channel, XIRAN's book, and everything else is on the description. Bye!
Bye-bye!
E aí, pessoal, o que vocês acharam? Realmente, como eu tinha falado no começo do vídeo, a gente passou por muitos assuntos, né? A gente realmente discutiu bastante coisa, mas eu curti muito esse papo, espero que vocês tenham gostado também. De novo, muito obrigada, Editora Intrínseca, pelo convite pra conversar com o XIRAN. Eu fiquei muito feliz, eu tava toda fangirl, acho que vocês me viram nervosa lá, porque o canal dele eu acompanho desde que começou a viralizar, sabe? E eu recebi as recomendações dos primeiros vídeos, lá da época que tinha os vídeos de MULAN e tudo mais. Então eu fiquei realmente muito feliz com essa oportunidade. Espero que vocês tenham curtido. Se você gostou, por favor, curte o vídeo, assina o canal. Um beijo e até a próxima. Tchau, tchau!